Hello there. Welcome to my campfire. My name is Seraphine, the Midnight Bard, and I travel from place to place, seeking the strange, the bizarre, and the unexplained. Free will is a funny thing. The ability to choose grants mankind an infinite capacity to shape their own future. From things as little as what you will eat each day, to more grandiose choices like choosing what to be, what to believe, when to run, and when to fight. But what happens when the choices presented mean either the loss of your loved ones or the loss of your soul? How would you choose? In a quiet house somewhere in Pennsylvania, a family man found himself in one such situation. With a hardened will and fierce determination, he stared into the dark and made the choice. Duncan walked into the office of the supervising bishop, ready to tell him the story of Michael and the events that transpired upon his arrival at his house. Duncan started telling the story. Pulling into the driveway of the small 2-story Pennsylvanian farmhouse, I had a sense of doubt and uncertainty as to why I was there. The outside was nothing special, just painted white with a blue tin roof. The place looked normal enough and did not give off any negative energy. However, you had told me I was needed there, and as a priest, you go where you're needed. I slowly walked up a stone path that led to a set of concrete steps and proceeded to knock on the front door. After 3 loud knocks, the door opened. A young man in his early 30s with dirty blonde hair and 2 different colored eyes opened the door. His greeting was warm and friendly, but behind those eyes, there was pain and sadness. This man was tired and looked defeated. He was clearly in need of some help, and this piqued my interest.
Oh! You must be the priest I've been waiting for. So nice to meet you. I hope you didn't have too much trouble finding the place. Please, come in.
No, not at all. I always enjoy driving through the country. It's a nice change of pace from the business of the city. The name's Duncan. It's a pleasure to meet you. The young man then moved aside, stretching out his arms as an indicator that I may enter the house, and introduced himself as Michael. The house was very cozy and orderly on the inside. Closing the front door, Michael walked ahead, ushering me through a set of double doors that led into his office, which gave the appearance of long work hours. This would give us some privacy from the other people in the house, Michael said to me. I could clearly hear them talking in the next room as the office door was shut. After shutting the door, he walked over to his desk and asked,
Before we get started, can I get you anything to drink?
Looking back at me, he was clearly hoping I would accept the offer. It was obvious that Michael did not want to have this conversation with me sober. Usually, drinking would not be something I would indulge in, but if a little liquid courage is what you need to get started, then I will not make you drink alone. I was raised that it's rude to refuse anything your host offers, so, you know what? Why not? If you have any 15-year-old bourbon, I would not object. After that, I took a short pause and continued. Once we have our drinks, if you are ready, we can get started. My bishop has requested that I be able to record our conversation. Do you object to this? Turning to the cabinet behind the desk, he opened the wooden doors and rummaged through, coming back with 2 glasses and a bottle of bourbon.
I don't mind. In fact, I was going to suggest it as well.
He wanted to make sure that his story was told properly and in its entirety. After the glasses had a generous amount of amber liqueur in them, he sat down in his black leather desk chair and motioned for me to do the same. I pulled out my recording device, and upon hitting the record button, his expression grew darker and more ominous. Michael set his gaze on the floor and began.
What I am about to disclose to you is a secret my family has kept hidden for generations, and have expected me to keep hidden as well. But it's time for the world to hear my family's tale. For generations now, my family has been cursed. One male in every generation has had a choice to make.
With a loud boom, a door could be heard hitting the wall, as well as the laughter of 2 little girls.
I am so sorry. Please forgive this interruption. Ashley, if you can please take your sister and go play elsewhere. I am in the middle of a meeting.
He said this in a pleasant but irritated tone.
Oh, okay, Daddy. Can we play hide and seek later?
Ashley asked with a grin. He smiled at his girls and, with all the love anyone could ask for, said,
Yes, absolutely. Anything for my 2 angels.
Michael sat back down.
Where was I? Ah, yes, my family and its curse. Let us begin with the facts that my family has had a much higher rate of disappearance than the average family. In fact, these files go as far back as my great-great-great-grandfather. I have noticed a few similarities in each missing person's case, but I can only verify 2 of them myself. My grandfather and my father both went missing on their 33rd birthday. Each claimed they were hearing voices before they disappeared, as well as an inverted cross appearing on their left arm. As a kid, I always thought it was a tattoo, which is strange because our family is Christian. It would never get a tattoo like that. But I can tell you now that it was not actually a tattoo, because the same mark appeared on my left arm.
Upon hearing this, I leaned forward and asked, Now, tell me, my son, why do you think you and your family are cursed? While heartbreaking, this is not concrete proof of a curse.
Please, allow me to continue. We are the last remaining descendants of Christ.
Once he said this, I was struck and dumbfounded.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. At 3 a.m. on my 33rd birthday, the temperature in my room dropped. It was freezing in there. I always thought the devil liked fire. Turns out, he's one cold bastard.
Michael chuckled to himself.
At the same time, my left arm started to feel as if it were burning. I can only imagine it felt like being branded like a cattle. This is when the inverted cross appeared on my arm. After the pain stopped, I heard the devil speak to me. He said it was my time to choose whether or not I'll accept the gift he offers, and he would spare my family. But if I refused, my bloodline would get eradicated. Standing up and dusting myself off, acting calm and cool, I was anything but. I shouted and pointed my finger at him like he was actually there. Listen to me, you fucking bastard. I will accept the terms, but mark my words, I will be the one to bring your ass to your knees. I will beat you once and for all. And thus began the worst time of my life,
Michael said, red swelling in his face. Wait, how are we having this conversation if you said yes?
Oh, you know, little this, little that. Honestly, it's a long and complicated answer, and I'll be happy to answer it right after dinner. You will stay for dinner, won't you, Mr. Duncan?
Michael asked. A loud bell chimed through the house. Michael stood up.
See, my wife installed the bell because I get lost in my work, and I often forget to eat,
Michael said. Michael looks at me and casually asks if I would stay for dinner. Of course, I did. I was hoping to get more of the story after dinner. However, that was not meant to be, for the events of that evening were interesting, to say the least. I will tell you in my own words what happened throughout the night. We left the office and entered the family room where Ashley and Sam were playing. The second after Ashley saw her father, she ran up to him and asked,
Daddy, can you and Mr. Duncan play with us now?
Looking at his daughters, clearly seeing their excitement, he was unable to say no.
Absolutely, let's play. Mr. Duncan, will you join us?
Sure, why not? It'll be my pleasure. Now, run and hide, girls. We're going to count to 100 and then come find you. But just as we reached 66, a loud crack of thunder and a flash of lightning sounded throughout the house, which caused a power outage. The girls both screamed, and Michael's wife came running out of the kitchen with flashlights in hand and yelled to Michael,
Go find the girls.
Michael and I ran up the stairs and ran into the room where we heard the scream come from. As we entered the room, he found Sam in the corner crying and Ashley standing by a horde of dead rats on the floor. She appeared to be playing with them. Getting the girls out of the room immediately, Sam was horrified, but Ashley seemed to enjoy the sight. And according to Michael, this was very uncharacteristic of her typical behavior. It was hours before the lights came back on, and even longer before we were able to get Sam calmed down. However, Ashley said she was not scared of the rats. And while talking about the dead animals, she had a hint of a smile on her face. Almost as if she enjoyed the sight. Eventually, we ate dinner. It was cold, but no one spoke throughout the meal. The silence was unsettling. I believe that most of us were unsettled by the night's events. After dinner, I was asked to please stay the night since it had been a long and rainy day, and the events of that night had him spooked, Michael. He must have felt safer with me in the house. Since I was in need of some rest and did not have the energy to try and get to a hotel, I accepted his offer. After getting some rest, and in the light of a new day, Michael felt more confident to finish the story. So, I began recording again.
The next 2 years, while the devil was controlling me, we performed such vile and horrific deeds, I blocked them out. However, finally, the time came. You see, I did not say yes without a plan. Once I determined that this was all real, I contacted an old friend from the Vatican. I told him what was happening, and he agreed that the devil would eventually get the strength to attack the Vatican. And when he did, they were prepared for him with a ritual from the Dark Ages. It can only be used once. This ritual was used to expel an angel, not a demon, hence why we are talking currently. I thought it was all over, and I'd be free to live my life out in peace. However, not too long after the events at the Vatican, my oldest daughter started to show symptoms of possession. She admitted that she was hearing voices for a while now. These voices urged her to allow it to take over, The mark appeared on her arm one night as she slept. I was in my room, sound asleep, and heard her scream. I jumped out of bed and threw open her door to see the mark appear on her arm, and took note of how cold it was in her room.
Ashley had said yes in that moment. She left a note on her bed that her father found saying that she did not want the devil to hurt anyone else in her family. This was an unprecedented possession for the devil, since he usually takes people at the age of 33 and that are male. Ashley was only 13 and female. This was not his usual MO. This new development meant we had to act fast if we were going to be able to save the girl. Michael and I contacted the Vatican once more, asking if there was a way that we could save her and banish the devil. Originally, they had no idea, but told us to salt the bottom of the door as well as draw a symbol on it that would temporarily lock the devil in. After weeks of research and us keeping Ashley contained, the Vatican contacted us and said that they had found another ritual. One where we can force the devil out of her and into one of us. And using the sword of the Archangel Michael, that person can be slain, and in theory, Satan would be banished back to hell. This, of course, was all hypothetical, since no one has ever performed this ritual before. The next step was, of course, to figure out who would be the one to sacrifice themselves. Michael spoke up.
This began with me, so it will end with me. It will be me who takes Satan in, and you who kills me. I will do anything I can do to keep my daughter safe.
So, we requested a list of rare items we would need. A wooden cross made from the Palo Santo tree, which has been used by saints due to its strong spiritual connection. Holy water that has been blessed by the Vatican, as well as holy oil that has been rumored to be able to trap an archangel in the flames until extinguished. An ancient Bible, and, finally, the sword of the Archangel Michael. Once we acquired these items and prepared, we went into the room and started to recite prayers out of Psalm 51. We read aloud, "Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin." As we were reciting this, Ashley started to scream in visible pain. Michael took that opportunity to douse her in the holy water, while I made a circle around her of holy oil. I set the holy oil aflame and continued to recite the verses. "For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin was ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight. Thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judge." We continued to read the prayers of Psalms until finally Ashley shook violently and grew still. The air grew cold, and the devil could be heard through the recorder saying,
"I need a willing host. Your blood shall it be, or will I end your bloodline?"
I accept. I am yours once more. Do with me as you will.
Having no other willing vessel he could enter, Satan jumped into Michael. Michael went still, and when he looked back up, his eyes were black. Without missing a beat, I thrust the sword into Michael's heart. As far as I could tell, the ritual was successful. However, Ashley was still unconscious for hours. Hours later, after performing the ritual, Ashley awoke from her haze and curled in my lap. "Thank God you're alive."
What happened to my daddy?
You were possessed, and your father saved you by sacrificing himself. This is where the recording ends. But after the recording, one last thing happened. According to Ashley, after she stood up, she caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror and witnessed the devil winking and laughing at her. Also, according to Ashley, after spinning around, what she saw was the dead body of her father and nothing more. She said goodbye to her father and ran out of the room crying.
So, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I'm not sure. But I don't think this family has had their last tragedy by a long shot.